Serdaf cardigan is finished. Well, almost finished. It still needs buttons. I love it so much and I've already worn it several times. Shall I model it? Let's put it on. Once I've got the buttons on, I will also get some nice reveal footage for the end. But just for now, doesn't really go with this dress, but oh well. But you will, hopefully, be able to get a feel for what we're dealing with. It's quite inoffensive in terms of 80s style lines, and I think that's part of, I talked about this pattern being quite similar to a petite knit one. That's sort of what I've noticed, is that, yeah, it could be from any period, it could be from any time. It could be 1940s, it could be 2020s. I'm really pleased with that I've managed to get a really wearable garment that fits. I don't think it fits me in the way that the original pattern intended. This is because the original pattern only came in 3 sizes, small, medium and large. The small size was for 38 bust. I am a 38 bust, and I think I misinterpreted it essentially. I think the finished measurement is 38 bust, and I think it was supposed to have some positive ease. And so I should probably have made the medium. I normally am a medium in these sorts of things. But I made a small. I wouldn't have had enough yarn for the medium anyway. So it is what it is. But as a result, it fits in a slightly more modern way. I think had I made the appropriate size, I would have gotten that 80s oversized slouchy fit. Fair enough. I have decided, in terms of button choice, I have decided to lean into the 80s, and I wanted something that kind of made it less modern and a bit more vintage, just to sort of go with my general style. And my mum found these in a charity shop, which are very sort of classic 80s Sloane Rangery kind of style, Princess Diana kind of style. They're not actually buttons, they are button covers. They're originally from Boots, goodness knows when. So, the thing with these is that they need to go over a button. And I've gone through my stash to try and find something appropriate, and the only thing I can find are like these little brown ones. We're using what we have. These came from a craft charity shop as well, so they were quite expensive. They were a £5. So I'm paying essentially new price for buttons here. But I've never seen this before, this sort of like latch mechanism on the back. A bit like a shoe clip or a clip-on earring or something. So this is going to be interesting, installing these buttons. I have checked, because it makes them quite thick. And so I have checked, they do just fit through the buttonholes. So it should be okay. But I also thought it's quite good in terms of washing. I can just take these off and put, because this is a superwash wool, I can put this in the washing machine. So, but these big things clunking about and could catch on the fabric and all of that and cause damage, to be able to remove them, it's quite cool. Feels very 19th century almost. So that leaves me with a bit of a dilemma about how I sew these on and what I sew these on with, because these are like shirt buttons, so they'll need thread, and all the thread is upstairs. Anyway, even without the buttons, according to my own policy, I suppose, this cardigan I finished the knitting and the sewing up of, so we can count off the yarn from the stash. Now, this was all I had left. So I couldn't have made the bigger size, as you say, but also this, not worth destashing, it's going in the mending stash, which means we are taking off a grand total of 10 balls of wool from the stash. Now, at the last total, we were at 114.4, which takes us down to 104.4 balls of wool in the stash. Mwah! So happy with that. I've still got to finish the Best Way cardigan. I'm in the process of sewing it up. See, look, it's nothing. It's a mending quantity. So I thought what I would do is talk to you about the project I have just cast on using the reclaimed yarn from my ski jumper. Here it is. Because I'm going to sit and knit. as I talk to you about this. Because this is going to become a confidette. I need to look up the name of the fucking pattern, don't I? Yes, Confidette Bolero by Tasha Moss, also known as Tasha Could Make That, Bygone by Golly, as was. My fellow like vintage knitting YouTuber, vintage sewing YouTuber, Instagram blogger, as was. I mean, I think she does still blog, but I've been following Tasha online for probably 10 years at this point, easily. And I was so excited when she started publishing her own knitting pattern designs, because she's an extraordinary knitter. You may know her from, she made like a Nancy Drew Intarsia sweater. I'll put a picture here. Absolutely stunning piece of work. Mammoth project. I have so much admiration for Tasha. And so I have come to realise that I quite like, in terms of cardigans, I've got several of them, 1950s kind of boxy cropped styles. Find them very versatile with my vintage dress and skirt collection, etc. So when I saw this pattern, I knew I wanted to make one. And I've sort of been waiting, because it came out during the period that I've been doing stash busting, I've sort of been waiting to have cleared some room in the stash so that I can buy yarn to make it. And then, of course, when I decided to frog this, I really liked this yarn for my 1930s ski jumper that I made as part of my Vlogmas project in 2024. I loved the yarn, and I loved the sort of finished fabric the yarn created. This is Drops Cotton Merino, so it's 50% cotton, 50% merino wool. And I knew I wanted to make something that I was going to wear regularly with this yarn. Now, I've worn green today because I have this green cardigan in my vintage knit collection. So I was a little bit reluctant to knit another cardigan in green. And so this usually serves, if I have an outfit that needs a green cardigan, I reach for this one because it's comfy and it's lightweight and lacy and it's all the things that I like. However, because it's quite a sort of muted green in a way, it's quite, well, it's like lime green, but because of the particular shade of green, it doesn't go with everything, which is where this comes in. You can see just sort of how like this one is quite a warm green and this is quite a cool green. So that's how I'm justifying making myself 2 green cardigans. Okay, humour me. But I'm really excited to work on a garment project for me and my wardrobe. The other side of this as well is Confidette and Tasha in the way that she designs. She designs vintage looking patterns using modern construction. So we are working seamlessly from the top down in the round here. I've done short rows shaping for the upper back. It's not something I do very often, and I think having done 2 cardigan projects recently, seamed in pieces. Oh my god, I'm making 3 cardigans. Hadn't thought about that. Oh well, I like and wear cardigans a lot, so I'm justifying it, okay? I've just realised I have another green cardigan. I'm gonna have 3 green cardigans. Okay, never mind. One is very dark. This one, being lightweight and lacy, and the shade of green it is, doesn't go with everything. I think I can justify this, okay? Anyway, what was I saying? Oh yes, the seamless in the round construction. I'm really excited to do it, having done a lot of sewing up recently. It's just nice as well in terms of my knitting experience, if you like, to keep my hand in with these techniques that I personally find quite challenging. I know a lot of contemporary knitters are petrified or intimidated by the idea of knitting in pieces and sewing it up. For me, it's the other way around. The idea of doing this and having to do short rows and pick up stitches and everything seems infinitely more complicated than just sewing pieces together. But that's me. So it's good for me to do this to sort of keep my skills sharp, as it were. I forgot that I have my little EPP kit down here. So I found some thread. Is that black? Yes. Well, that'll do. I'm going to sew some buttons on. Now, just need to make sure. Oh, the other thing about this cardigan, I did my typical thing of getting the left and the right confused, and it fastens like a men's cardigan would. Oh well. Wherever possible, I try and reuse secondhand buttons. It's one of those like tiny little things. Firstly, buttons are expensive, man. Like, sometimes they're like over £1 each in my local craft shop. And I'm like, are you for real? For this mass manufactured piece of plastic that costs less than a penny to make, you're going to charge me £1.20. Okay. So it's a really easy way to save money to use secondhand buttons, and also they're plastic. You know, they're a forever material, and so being able to reuse them, particularly given like the scale of fast fashion production and things, they're churning out of this stuff. Anyway, I won't get up on my high horse, I promise. But anyway, but my point is, wherever possible, I like to try and reuse vintage or secondhand buttons. And yes, I am the sort of person, if I do eventually have to bin a garment, and yes, I do occasionally bin clothes, because there's a whole load of reasons why actually sometimes putting them in the bin is the best thing to do. If I do bin garments, I cut the buttons off first. Because these are buttons designed to be flat, I'm making a thread shank by not sewing it completely flat to the garment to begin with, letting it sort of float around, and then wrapping the thread around it. Ran out of thread a little bit there. Whoops. And that way, when I button it closed, there's room underneath the button for the fabric to sit. So, should we see how these work? So I've got my little plastic buttons sewn on. I've opened out my button cover and you slide it on. They're a touch small, but any bigger, and I don't think I didn't have any that were absolutely perfect to fit inside. Then we just clip it in. Jiggles about a little bit like that, but once you button it up, look at that! Don't they look great? Sagan's here. Woody's here. Say hi, Woody.
Hi, Woody.
He's over there. Wave. It is a Saturday afternoon. We've had a very Saturday-y day today, haven't we? That is relevant because I'm trying to get to under 100 balls of wool by the end of this month. Having done my stash count up and realised that the new total, if you like, is 114.4. I wanted to try and finish some of my Finish It February projects so that I can count the yarn off. We did that successfully with the navy cardigan, so that's 10 balls of wool down. We're down to 104.4. And I have been knitting like mad as a result to try and get under 100. So I finished my barley beanie. You saw me cast this on when I wasn't very well. And look, it's done! So I'm really pleased with it because I have a big head. I also have a lot of hair, and so I need room in hats. And I don't like them to like egghead on me like this because it just sort of emphasises my big head. I like a little bit of slouchy room at the top. And I like a really wide brim because the reason why I wanted to turn this quite precious and sentimental yarn into a hat is because... Are you done?
I don't know.
If Woody comes in and out of shot, you'll forgive him. He's in a hyperfocus. The reason I wanted a hat to turn this sentimental yarn into a hat is because of the fact that even in spring-like weather, mild weather, I have to wear a hat because my ears get cold and then I get a migraine. So I was drawn to this pattern because it had a really wide brim. I actually ended up knitting the hat itself longer so that I could like have the widest double brim possible. It was supposed to be like an inch shorter, in which case the rib wouldn't quite cover the top of my ears, as it were. So I knitted it to be as long as possible. Nice warm ears. This 75 grams of wool. So that is another 1.5 off the stash total. So we were at 104.4. That's 102.9, if my maths is correct. I used to be really good at mental arithmetic, and then I became disabled, and occasionally I still get it. 102.9. The other thing I've been working on, of course, is this. My Best Way lace weight cardigan. I am in the process of sewing it up now. Doesn't it look good though? Doesn't it look good? I'm so pleased with it. I've done like one sleeve and side seam, and I've started on another cuff to do that side seam. I also did some machine knitting, and I have knit the button band. I've potentially made it a bit short, and I might have to put it back on the knitting machine depending on how my easing in goes. I also still have to finish my buttonholes. I made my first attempt and I'm not sure I love the result. So I should have done some research before I made a first attempt, but I didn't. I just went off instinct and what I remembered or half remembered from reading the original instructions. And as a result, it's not great. It's very fiddly to do. And I think because I used a waste yarn that's barely noticeable different in colour, that made it a bit trickier. However, this is done. Basically, the knitting of it is done. I've weighed it and it is about 120 grams. That is 2.4 balls of wool, which is mad for a whole cardigan to weigh 120 grams. But, so mine is 2.4, 100.5 balls of wool in the stash. And I thought to myself, what have I got that I can use and get rid of really quickly? So I went through and I remembered that I had some Aran weight acrylic from Aldi, which I had bought previously to knit gifts for some babies. A lot of my friends are currently having babies, and I thought I'll just whip up some different styles of baby hat, and then depending on whoever has a baby first or whoever's baby is, you know, I was trying to figure out, like, if the baby's due in September, what size hat do I need to knit them? And given this is an Aran weight yarn, it's probably a winter hat. So if they're a newborn, do I really want to knit them a tiny weeny little Aran hat? It's only going to fit them for a month and it's going to be September, could be 20 degrees in September in the UK, you know, so I've been trying to riddle some of that out. Anyway, we have 2 little baby hats. Oh, they're sweet. This one is a pattern by somebody. It's called Troll. Oh, it's one of those words I struggle with. Troll. 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 And the pattern is by Gabriella Widmer-Hunker. I think that must be Weidmer-Hunker. Weidmer-Anker? Yeah, I think it's also in German. So Gabriella Weidmer-Hunker. Troll. That's this one. It was a free pattern. And this one is, I made the second size, which it said was toddler. However, with my gauge, it came out more likely to fit like a 3 to 6 month old sort of baby, as opposed to like a toddler, a year toddler that can actually walk and stuff. But it's like, right? Really cute. I thought you have a little baby and you put them in a little troll hat and they're going to look like the sweetest little gnome or pixie or something. So that was one. I still had some yarn left, and so I made another one. This is more newborn size, and the pattern I used for this was another free pattern, Baby Beanie Aran by Yankee Yarns. Yeah, and this was really cute. This one was top down, which was great because I was able to use up all my yarn, and it meant I had to omit a few rows of the brim, and it actually took me 2 attempts to cast off because I ran out of yarn. I had to go back and make it shorter. But I think it's so cute. And I mean, personally, I'm not a fan. It's really in, isn't it, to have like beige for babies. I'm not really a fan of it. It's not my personal taste, but given that these are gifts for people, it is at least a nice neutral. I had 50 grams of Aran weight yarn. I used 50 grams of it, or I used like 49 and I had this much left, and I've put it in the bin, which means that's a whole ball of wool used up and gone from the stash, taking us to 99.5. We are under 100. Yay! Thanks, Woody, for your support. It just feels really good to be under 100, and I sort of had forgotten how close we were, if that makes sense, because I sort of took a little bit of a break from YouTube altogether for a variety of reasons over Christmas and New Year. I'd sort of forgotten where I was up to. But we're under 100, and so I'm going to try and pivot Are you back? Did you eat your dinner? So yes, I'm going to pivot my priority to using up scrappy little bits. However, I came to work on those socks. Let me get them. I came to work on the Great Paxford socks and I realised something. I put them on stitch holders so I could start again. And I was like, oh, that's not the yarn ball. That's 2 daisies. That's random that that's in there, which means that I don't have a second lot of yarn of this yellow. I've only got one. So I've lost one because I definitely had 2 and I've lost some yarn, which means that I can't make a second sock to match. I'm so annoyed about it because it's these are the bits that I want to get rid of, and a project like this is perfect for that, and I was ready to bash it out and like get rid of some scrappy bits of yarn, and now I don't know what to do because should I wait and see if that scrap of yellow turns up? But I've organised all my yarn and fabric this week, and so if I didn't find it then, I have no idea where it is. It's probably not in this house, it's probably back home with mum and dad. It's just so annoying. But yeah, I've got my Confidette Bolero on the go. I've done an upper back and one sort of upper front. So we're sort of like, I've got to take these needles off and pick up here again. Really loving the way that this is looking. Very excited about that. So I've got like a garment project on the go. And then I'm going to sort of pepper in some little scrappy projects for very small quantities throughout and just try and get those little bits gone. I think, anyway, that's where I currently am, but I'm not holding myself to anything really. I'm sort of letting my interest and enthusiasm and crucially energy guide me currently because that's the way I have to live. So thank you very much for watching this episode of Stash Busting. I don't really think I'm going to finish anything in the next 3 days, and I think it's just time to call it. So, but what I will do for you is I will film some footage when I've got some sunshine of the finished 1980s cardigan. So thanks for watching. See you next time. Going for the full climb, are we? Yeah, good boy.